Oh, you'll love this, man. It's come to be the time of year that we have to have the air conditioning on in this house, and it doesn't work. Or rather, kind of the same problem I had in the wintertime with the heat, where like there's an upstairs and a downstairs. They're on two separate units. The upstairs unit works fine. The upstairs is blowing cold and it's beautiful upstairs. But like the opposite of the way it normally should be, it's cold upstairs and you come downstairs where my bedroom is. And this is my first time, actually I guess since last summer, podcasting without a shirt. This is this is bringing me back to the good old days when we first started the show. Remember that?
Literally the hottest experience of my life.
I think it was the hottest day of the year. The day we recorded, it was the episode about Don Blankenship and and the coal or oil tycoons or whatever.
Yes.
And God, just have to have the fan off and the window closed. I was lightheaded. I was literally lightheaded. And like that was back in the day before we kind of figured out what the hell we were doing. So it took us like 4 hours to record every episode.
Yeah. It did.
Oh my God.
That was the one where Shane, you were over at my place.
Yeah.
And we were drinking like hot wine.
Yeah.
on a hot day in July. Nothing cools you off like a nice, refreshing 90-degree glass of red wine.
I remember that one was like, because it took so long for us to record too. When I finally left your house, it wasn't even that late, but it was like during the summer in New York. So like, it's like, hey, is it nighttime? None of the trains work. And it took me like 4 hours to get home. And I was like stuck on like a bunch of different subway platforms with like no ventilation or anything. And I remember I had this I thought I was gonna die because I was like filled with like boiling wine inside, just like an oven underground. And then that was like, I had this fucking thing on my leg that got really irritated.
Right.
And because of all the sweat that was building up. And then later I found out it was Lyme disease. I had gotten Lyme disease.
That's right.
Not from, presumably, the subway, but from when I was in upstate New York.
Yeah, from Dwight's house.
Just ticks everywhere inside of my house. Just filled with ticks.
Oh man.
I forgot how fucking miserable that was.
Yeah, it sucked.
And we were trying to figure out, it's like, it's easier when we're remote because we can like isolate our recording and stuff. But like if we're sitting right next to each other, it was oh my God. We were sharing a pair of headphones. Like we were sitting cheek to cheek with
recording with a fucking
one earbuds.
Dixie cups connected with fucking strings and stuff.
Just fucking pouring sweat. We should have easily we were easily medically dehydrated by the end of that experience, and like emotionally drained too. Is like before that we've developed these hardened souls, our hardened spirits from going through all this shit and poisoning the listeners' ears. Yeah, Don Blankenship.
It was fun.
Jim Justice. Jesus Christ, it was fun. Yeah. I was reflecting on that a little bit, like the different, because we're coming up and we're gonna do something for our 1 year anniversary of this show, but just thinking about like how weird and wild and exciting it was to start the show and stuff. I don't know, it was a lot of fun, some really exciting times. I actually wanted to bring this up because I was reflecting on this. I was watching yesterday, I'd started watching it, the documentary Manufacturing Consent, featuring centering around Noam Chomsky.
Sure.
And basically, like, I think it pretty much follows like a lot of his book talks that he gave when Manufacturing Consent came out. And one of the things that he was talking about was like, people need to be creative in order to feel fulfilled. And then that's very much like a part of a healthy society, is for people to maximize their creativity, because that's something that we're just we innately do. We create. It's something that's very fulfilling for us. And I was thinking like, how valuable it was and how important it was for us to like engage in this project, to continue this kind of like quest and thirst for knowledge and shit. It's been a great joy in my life, I say, because I'm feeling very kind of amorous towards our project here today, boys. Is that the right term?
Sentimental.
Yes. Sentimental. Sentimental. Sound like I lost my jaw mobility. Sentimental. It was, however, dulled this morning by listening to what I think was probably one of the most hideous things that Donald Trump has ever said.
Oh, the heaven comment?
Of course.
Yeah, awful.
If we could play it here.
Equal justice under the law must mean that every American receives equal treatment in every encounter with law enforcement, regardless of race, color, gender, or creed. They have to receive fair treatment from law enforcement. They have to receive it. We all saw what happened last week. We can't let that happen. Hopefully George is looking down right now and saying, this is a great thing that's happening for our country. This is a great day for him. It's a great day for everybody. This is a great day for everybody. This is a great, great day in terms of equality. It's really what our Constitution requires, and it's what our country is all about.
I was thinking about, Chris, what you said on the last free episode, the last public episode, which was, I bet Marx didn't anticipate tragedy and farce happening at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way you can describe it. And him saying that, just as so many other things he said, is just absolutely grotesque and hideous as it is. It's so absurd that you can't not find humor in it. It's so unbelievably absurd.
Really bad. It was not a high point to wake up to this morning.
No. But I mean, what do you expect? There's nothing he does that could ever surprise me at this point. And there's nothing that, the liberal sort of habit of, how dare you say this, sir? How dare you? You know what I'm saying? You're never gonna, haven't these people learned yet that it's never gonna work? You're never gonna get him like that. He doesn't give a shit. By the time he says that, probably by the time this episode has been released, he'll have said something equally heinous, and it's just everybody's just gonna move on.
I mean, the chance of him bringing up George Floyd in some kind of really grotesque way during his next State of the Union is probably 90 to 100%.
Yeah,
he'll be he'll bring up George Floyd. Yeah, and I mean, it's all a kind of weird performative thing. I mean, you see it a lot. Obviously, in a great moment of national tragedy and general unrest and everything that's going on, all of the various elements of all of the markers of this moment, are sort of up for political grabs. And it feels bad to put it that way, but that's how very cynical actors are going to look at it, turning anybody into a martyr for their own particular cause, in the sense of, again, conservatives or liberals taking ownership of police brutality or people dying, or just kind of trying to recenter the conversation around different things, or the idea that has been put forward a lot is the fucking day or the few days when it was first, when we did the last Patreon episode, I think last week, when there was the press conference by the Minnesota the governor and stuff. Yeah, and the people, and they were bringing out, and the
governor,
whole line there was you're dishonoring George Floyd's memory by being violent or whatever. It was aimed at the protesters, which again is a totally ridiculous statement, and it's really unfortunate to see. But you see it. It's all it's concern trolling. It's it's a very despicable kind of turn to take. And I don't think anybody sees it as genuine. I mean, that's the thing. I don't even think Trump supporters see it as genuine. You'd have to be really stupid to think that it's a genuine statement. I think most of them know, what he means by it and how he's signaling with it, and they're content with that.
Well, I just gotta say, speaking of cynicism and trying to recenter the narrative around a tragedy to fit your own agenda, it's a damn shame that we don't have a president around anymore like Barack Obama, who would have simply invited the family of George Floyd and the police officers who murdered him to the White House, to have a nice pint of Hefeweizen together and hash it out and reconcile.
God. That really shook me. Like, I remember that was like 2009, the beer summit.
That was like right after he got inaugurated. That was one of the first sort of kind of major things that happened.
Mm-hmm.
A Harvard professor, an absolute, an acclaimed academic, a guy that is just miles ahead of this completely fuck-ass, slack-jawed Boston
moron,
cop.
Racist cop, yeah.
Just an absolute fucking mush nobody. Like just a dinosaur, and he's sitting down in the rose garden having a fucking blue moon.
And didn't it not work anyway in terms of like who are you trying to impress with that, or like who are you trying to like reach out to that? Because didn't the right wing press then slander Obama for like having a Heineken or some shit? I kind of remember that there was some stupid attack at him about like what his choice of beer was. Like he didn't pick a manly enough beer, which is like, first of all, who gives a shit? And like, what at that point, like, what can you do? You know what I mean? It's that whole idea of like trying to be like to do these performative judgments or these performative like acts of reaching out and then getting it thrown back in your face. Like what could you do? Like chug fucking Everclear or something? Like that would be somehow more impressive. It's also stupid.
What the fuck is a manly beer? What the fuck does that even mean?
There's this one beer I had when I was like 16 that was called Arrogant Bastard.
Yeah, oh dude, I love it. It's good.
And I was gonna say it tastes like shit.
Oh, it's so
it's
good.
awful.
Are you kidding me?
The whole selling point of it is it's like fucking 10% alcohol or whatever.
No, it's not quite that much.
And it comes in a bottle that has like a devil on it or something. So it's supposed to be like hardcore. It's awful.
Oh, I loved those.
Just drink wine at that point. Who gives a shit?
But circling back around specifically to that, Obama's beer summit, like really like especially looking at it through the lens of everything that's happened since then, like with this going on with Ferguson and everything, like I mean that was so ridiculous, and that was so obviously because Obama's whole thing coming in off the tails of the Bush administration, his whole thing was how he was going to be the uniter president. He was going to bring the parties back together and reach across the aisle and like unite the country. And so like that beer summit thing for him was so symbolic, but it was just so nakedly cynical for him to try to use that situation where you have, like you said, on the one hand someone who's completely innocent, and on the other hand this party who is obviously guilty and at fault. Like what do you have to fucking reconcile? Why do you have to bring them together? You know what I'm saying? Like what do you what do they have to hash out? And like I mean, given everything we know about the way these situations sometimes go, he just as easily could have shot him. Like what? It's just like looking back at it now, it was so it's so cynical, and it's so obvious the way he tried to use that for his own image.
I think about what Shane you were talking about on what episode we were talking about Mars Attacks and thinking about Pierce Brosnan's character, who's supposed to be this like liberal intellectual, to say like, hey, we need to bring the sides together and the truth is in the center, and we really need to reason with the people that are trying to annihilate us with lasers. And we should say this Harvard professor's name is Henry Louis Gates. Like the fact that he debased what I think is like debasing Henry Louis Gates down to the level to like sit at the same table as like this fucking idiot racist dick, like is so condescending. And he had to do it. Oh God. Not a high point.
I mean, it creates a false equivalency, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Which is to say that, like, both of them have an equally important viewpoint that needs to be hashed out in some way, or that they can meet on common terms. And the whole ridiculousness of this is that, like, when you're dealing especially with racism and, like, super embedded, institutionalized racism, right? Like, they don't perceive other people as being equal to them. So the whole premise of the idea that you could come together and like hash things out is just not it's not like on a purely intellectual level. It's a bankrupt idea because there is no equation there, right? That's why like all of that stuff that was happening in sort of like 2015 to just about like a year ago with like the campus free speech nonsense of these like right-wing provocateurs and fuckheads deliberately
router.
Yeah, like going to college campuses and setting up tours there, you know, where like the fucking, you know, college Republican / college Waffen SS subdivision of like 4 assholes on, you know, a primarily like liberal campus or whatever would invite fucking Heinrich Himmler or whoever to their thing. And then of course, you know, a huge amount of people would come protest and they'd be like, oh, like you don't want to talk. It's like, there is no talking with those people. I mean, this is like, again, on a even just on a philosophical level, like even if you believe in the whole bullshit premise of like a sort of liberal society, right? Like for the liberal society to exist, you have to like excise, like there's some parameter around which like there is unacceptable ideas and unacceptable thoughts, and part of that are the ideas and thoughts of like the ones that say like we should like murder half the population, or we should kill everybody who's non-white, or what, you know, any other variation of that. Or even, you know, I mean, you see the same thing now with, like, the fucking Tom Cotton op-ed that they publish in the New York Times, and the whole defense of it is like, oh, we need to hear, like, opposing viewpoints. Like, what? Like, what if fucking Donald Trump wrote, you know, had one of his fucking speechwriters write a thing where he's just like, we need to impose martial law and, like, shoot people on sight, which is essentially what the fucking Cotton thing is.
Yes.
Would they publish it? Like, it's a fucking ridiculous premise that somehow this is, like, an equal voice that needs to be heard. And it's not. It's not.
Right. If you want to say that is a reasonable voice, you know, if you really want to talk about an equal voice, if you're gonna put that shit in there, then fuck it, give Bob Avakian a fucking op-ed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you see nothing close to that coming from, you know, the left to the liberal side.
Yeah. Until they publish David Koresh's take on the 7 seals of the Book of Revelations, I don't want to see the Tom Cotton op-ed. I don't.
I don't have this in front of me, but take a look at how the New York Times reported on the rise of Hitler in the 30s.
Yes. Yeah. The same stuff.
Time made a man of the year. And what year was that? 37, 38, maybe even 39? Could have been 39.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I think it was 38. That was when he did like fucking Anschluss and like, you know, took to Sudetenland, and they were like, wow, he's making moves. He's really disrupting the border industry in Central Europe. We should give him a fucking full-page spread.
Yeah, God, you're right. He'd already fucking taken the Rhineland and the Sudetenland, and yeah.
Yeah, he had already started the path to the Second World War, and they were like, he's a notable figure.
God.
Yeah, it's an absurd, but again, it's an absurd premise where like, for the existence, and again, this isn't even like a radical take. This is like basic liberal philosophy. For the preservation of the fucking like liberal state, you can't permit like on a high level, I'm not saying just like people thinking this or saying this or whatever, but on a high level, the like general entertainment of the idea of like, well, what if we just crushed the liberal society and did away with it? Like that's moronic to say. Like, well, we should hear that out. Like, how many times do you want to debate that? Indefinitely? Forever? Shouldn't the whole premise of the liberal society be that, like, you know, now that we've come together as the liberal society, we've agreed that this is what we want, the liberal society. We shouldn't continually listen to people being like, nope, we shouldn't have this anymore. It's fucking moronic.
It is moronic. It's dumb. Like, I can't like think of any other adjective to express it. Like, it's
very dumb. It's very dumb
because it's you know, they like the same liberals that will be like, the people are voting against their own interests by voting Republican. Meanwhile, they're just like, yes, I would like to hear out the fascists.
Right, exactly. I want to, not only that, I want to platform them. I don't understand the New York Times. I don't understand why Trump keeps getting elected while we publish stuff from Tom Cotton. Like, why does that keep happening?
A man who runs every day to create a caloric deficit in order for him to eat birthday cake.
That's right.
On an everyday basis. I don't want that to get lost at all. That is real.
You can, by the way, you can just eat ice cream cake any day you want without doing the running. You can. It's great. They sell them at the store.
That's what he said. He's like, yeah, I asked my wife to pick up a white birthday cake, like a sheet birthday cake. Absolute psychotic shit. And in continuing on the liberal failure of of responding to this moment, I'm going to invoke our friend of the show, Michaela Wilkes, because in D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser renamed the section of 16th Street in front of the White House Black Lives Matter Plaza. And as Michaela Wilkes pointed out, I'm reading a tweet from her here. She wrote, "I'm sorry, I wish I could find joy in this, but it just feels performative as hell. Mayor Bowser's proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 includes an additional $18.5 million for police and a $16 million cut to housing assistance. We need real change, and that starts with a budget, not this." The liberal consensus, I think, wants to do nothing to create justice, which would be making things right and taking the steps to actually enable people to find justice, let alone equanimity. And here we are just, renaming streets and stuff, which is fine, and it's good, and I'm glad. We should, rename bullshit old, take down Confederate statues and shit, but like, if you're gonna create justice, create justice.
I can't believe, speaking of that, I saw this the other day, I can't believe they're taking down the Robert E. Lee statue in Richmond. I know ever thought that could happen. But like, the thing is, where that statue is located, it's on a street called Monument Avenue. And it's called Monument Avenue because all the way down it, every couple of blocks, there's a statue. There's a Confederate statue. They got Robert E. Lee, they got Stonewall Jackson, they got Jefferson Davis, they've got Admiral Maury, they've got Jeb Stuart, I think I might have said. They got like this, a bunch of them. And then they've got Arthur Ashe, the tennis player. Which
that's
was
pretty, oh, that's,
it was,
that's
well,
nice.
It was quite a bit of controversy. That statue went up in the 90s when I was a kid, and there was quite a bit of controversy when they put that statue up. People would claim it's certainly not because he was black, but it was because he was not a Confederate general. So... So that was a weird scandal. But I guess what I'm saying is, and like not only on that one street, but there's others all over the city. So to take down the one, I really wonder where it goes from there. Are they going to take them all down?
They took down the statue of Mayor Rizzo in Philadelphia.
Yeah, saw that too.
And that was like a day after basically protesters had gathered, in and around there. It's by sort of like the City Hall area. They'd gather around there and tried to take it down, and then and the police went in and cracked down on that violently.
I gotta see. I might have. I was in Philadelphia the day. God, I can't remember. I think it was Trayvon Martin. The day that I was there, where there was some major protests going on in regards to some other police shooting, and they advanced. I believe the statue, the monument of Mayor Rizzo, it was vandalized then. I think I have some pictures of it on my phone. This was several years ago, obviously.
Nice.
I'm sorry. Can I interject something quickly?
No.
You're going to want to hear this. This was just published by The Intercept by Nick Terse.
Okay. Fine publication.
And I'm going to read this out loud, the title. Pentagon War Game includes scenario for military response to domestic Gen Z rebellion. Can I just read the first two paragraphs of this?
Sure.
In the face of protests composed largely of young people, the presence of America's military on the streets of major cities has been a controversial development. But this isn't the first time that Generation Z, those born after 1996, has popped up on the Pentagon's radar. Documents obtained by The Intercept via the FOIA reveal that a Pentagon war game called the 2018 Joint Land, Air, and Sea Strategic Special Program, or JLAS, offered a scenario in which members of Generation Z, our beloved Zoomers, driven by malaise and discontent, launch a Z-bellion in America in the mid-2020s.
No. They don't put that in there. Is that in there?
I'm reading verbatim. I'm reading verbatim. I put in the beloved Zoomers part, but the launch of Z-bellion. The Z-bellion plot was a small part of the JLAS 2018, which also featured scenarios involving Islamic militants in Africa, anti-capitalist extremists, tugging at my collar here, and ISIS successors. The war game was conducted by students and faculty from the U.S. military's war colleges, the training grounds for prospective generals and admirals. While it was explicitly not a national intelligence estimate, the war game, which covers the future roughly through 2028, is intended to reflect a plausible depiction of major trends and influences in the world regions.
You know what that makes me think of?
Zoomers are cool.
Do you guys remember Jade Helm 15?
Yes, of course.
Absolutely.
You guys remember that, and how like all those fucking like Alex Jones flipped out about it, and all those other kind of like right-wing militia type people were like saying that was Obama was gonna fucking take over the continental United States by like, you know, attacking all the good patriots and the Southwest and Texas and shit, and round everybody up and put them into FEMA camps. And he said like I remember Jones said, because I watched a lot of Alex Jones videos about that because it was really funny to me, and he said Helm stood for, I think it was Homeland Eradication of Local Militants.
Wow.
Or local militias or something. That's what he claimed. And they had this whole, and then there were like other people who were claiming that like it had something to do with like a comet or an asteroid. Anyway, the point of all this is to say like, where the fuck are all those militia type people now? You know what I mean? Now that it's like actually there is martial law in the United States instead of some stupid fantasy. You know, like where are all those motherfuckers? Like, you know, the only ones who are out right now are on the side of the police.
Yes.
You know, so like it just shows that whole idea that those people were truly harbored any rebellion, you know what I mean? With the exception of probably like a few actual like fucking far right survivalist militias in Montana or whatever who are just like in the hinterlands.
Speaking of militia type, I'll tell you what they're doing right now. I wondered if maybe we could talk a minute about, did you see that story out of Washington?
It Forks, Washington,
this is
or something?
Absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, so there's
No,
some
I didn't
local.
see this. I didn't see this.
I'm surprised this isn't bigger. It seems to just be breaking today, so maybe it will be bigger. It only seems to have been written about in some local papers, but I guess some like local gun store owner out of Washington, like he had it's sort of very reminiscent of, remember back in 2017 when they thought that like the November 4th, like the Antifa Civil War was going to start, and they were all like freaking out about that. So this guy who you know owns a gun store there in rural Washington, he did some like, you know, your classic guy in a car with, you know, sunglasses, you know, Facebook rant on video, and you know, about how like this completely baseless conspiracy theory about how Antifa was going to come and they were going to burn their town down and how they needed to defend their town. So I guess based on that, some of the townspeople there out of Forks, it is Forks, Washington, they like accosted this school bus with a family in it, a family of 4. They were passing through town and they were going to camp nearby, and I guess they accosted them first in the you know, in the parking lot of this camping supply store, you know, demanding to know if they were Antifa and what they were doing there and all this sort of stuff. Like 6 or 7 cars full of local townspeople, right? And then you know, after they left there, then I guess they followed them to where they were camping, and they were like down some, you know, sort of heavily wooded country road where they were going to be setting up their campsite, and these local people cut down all the trees on the driveway leading into it and trapped them in there. I mean, this is a horror movie. This is like Deliverance.
I was just thinking that, Chris.
Truly horrifying.
And I'm trying to Google this, but if I'm not mistaken, this was an interracial family.
Yes, it was. Don't want to speculate, but I can imagine it might have had something to do with it as well.
I feel like I want to fucking throw up. I read that this morning, Chris, and I've the pit in my stomach.
It's hard, you know, and it's the kind of thing, and I really like, it wouldn't be hard to prosecute these people because, and it's the kind of thing, like I said, I when I first read it, it seemed so out there that I like questioned whether or not it was even real. But you can see there's multiple articles about it, and it's actually like you can find links to, you know, the angry car guy's rant. That's still up, and then you can also find, I mean, there's the people, there's like Facebook groups, and like in the replies to his original rant where they're like openly bragging about having done this. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like so many people who were involved in it, like, you know, on Facebook under their full names are talking about it and discussing their part in it.
You know, and I'm thinking about what you said, like this would be so easily prosecutable,
right?
And should be, right. And you know, yet, you know, I think our cynicism, you know, in our sarcasm and our voices is well placed, because I think we know that, you know,
not convinced it will be.
Exactly, it is going to be like fucking Deliverance, because it's going to be like, you know, the
well, the last I saw about it, and I'm not sure if this was confirmed or not, but I saw some speculation that one of the people, you know, that was in like the angry mob was some sort of like, you know, local assembly person or some sort of local some sort of very small local politician.
Right.
You know, and I think in the conversation about like, well, we need police that's come out of this, this whole thing, and what are we going to do about murders and blah, blah, blah. I saw a statistic that was stunning, which was in some amount of major American cities, like 500 major American cities or something like that. Out of the, I think it was like 48,000, don't quote me, I'll try to find this later, but 48,000 murders, 50% of those are just completely unaddressed, have not been prosecuted, there's nothing that's happened. So if you like try to think of a value of like what some sort of policing force, what the police force is offering now as far as protecting and serving, A, it's not stopping any murders from happening, and B, it's not doing anything even in a reaction to a murder.
Right.
Like that's a failure, right? That's like a failure. Right. Like a 50% rate is a failure of that thing. Like you would not pass a class if you got 50% of the questions right. So like, what the fuck is it for anyway?
Yeah. Yeah.
That story really makes me fucking feel sick, Chris. That's disgusting.
I mean, that's the other kind of danger that is coming out through this moment of unrest is that, like, those groups, especially the ones that are like all obsessed with this idea of like some kind of vast Antifa plot or whatever, like they're gonna start doing their own kind of version of vigilante justice, and pretty soon they're gonna find one of the most notorious of the Antifa commandos, Jimothy Sparrowcake. They're gonna come to his house. They're gonna break down his door.
Shane, I was fucking howling. At that. Absolutely hilarious.
I didn't expect for it to take off. I mean, I was just like really hungover, and I saw that video, and I thought, this is so stupid. What can I do in a quick second to make fun of it? And then it ended up getting like all of this weird attention, and people like arguing in the replies, and eventually, as I found out today, because I didn't even keep checking on it, because it was just like, I had a lot of fun with it, but at a certain point I just had to turn it off, because there were like lots of people who like obviously didn't listen to it. Or
can you for the listener who hasn't seen it, can you please explain what happened?
Oh, so James O'Keefe, who runs that ridiculous Project Veritas thing, which is like notoriously just like a fraudulent, right-wing, pathetic attempt, like Jacob Wohl level of attempts to like create these investigative undercover videos that show how the evil left-wing things. I mean, they've done a few where they like supposedly have infiltrated CNN. That was one I saw a long time ago. And anyway, the guy has like a track record for just blatantly making shit up. So anyway, they had this like whole expose where they were like, we infiltrated Antifa in what was it, Portland? Or in the somewhere in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. It was Rose City Antifa. I guess it would have been Portland.
Yeah. So the whole idea was that they were like, they had infiltrated, and they had, this guy, and he's wearing, like a hoodie that says Antifa on it, and his face is blacked out, and he's like, I infiltrated Antifa, and and it has all these ridiculous things. So anyway, so I just made fun of it because it's stupid, and then like all of these replies again, including fucking James O'Keefe, quote tweeted it.
Oh God.
And was mad.
I loved it.
And the thing that I loved about that is his quote tweet didn't get like a fraction of the views that my thing had. And out of all of it, I only got one weird kind of death threat message, and I got it randomly yesterday, and I just like looked at it. I was like, this is weak and pathetic. And then today when I realized he had actually like quote tweeted it and sort of directed people to like harass me, it was just like, he has like 1 million followers, and it's like, dude, you suck at this. Like Chris is better at directing harassment than this guy.
That's a joke, parody, allegedly.
But like it was a really fun time. But yeah, so then the other thing, so I did like a recut.
I'm sorry. Before you do that, Shane, Kathy Griffin responded to you.
Oh yeah,
right,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so basically what happened is my post said, is this true? And if you watched the video, like I'd recut the video and put my own voice track over it to make fun of it. But I guess a lot of people, because other people have been just retweeting the original video or whatever, people just saw that, and I got all of these angry, like, resist replies being like, no, it's not true. Actually, Project Veritas is very bad. Like, And I had a whole bunch of people to respond to me, say shit like, oh, you study propaganda and you can't tell if this is true or not. and of course, you just keep fucking with them at that point where you just say, no, it's actually very true. And at one point, Kathy Griffin fucking was, a lot of people were just performatively responding, just being like, no.
Yes.
Like you really stood up.
The Kathy Griffin, blue check Kathy Griffin. I thought that was, and she deleted it. No, she deleted what she said.
We started making fun of her once we saw she had replied. Yeah,
I think I quote tweeted her, and I think that was when she deleted it.
I love it.
Speaking of Project Veritas, do you remember the thing they did with Roy Moore? Remember where they tried to one of their undercover hidden camera things they did was where they tried to they got a woman to get in touch with a journalist from the Washington Post, and they were going to try to plant a fake rape accusation against Roy Moore to try to smear the Washington Post. To be like, look, they're just taking unverified accusations against anybody, right? And so to set up this meeting, and it was done, so poorly that they had I guess they met in the restaurant or whatever, and then the woman they'd hired, she had this big bulky purse or whatever that had very obviously had a hidden camera and a microphone in it, and I guess the woman, the journalist they were meeting with, was like, you have a camera. You have a camera in that. You have a camera in that purse. No, we don't. No, I don't. I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, no, right there. You have a camera. Why do you have a camera in that purse?
It's jogging my memory too, because if I remember correctly, the journalist looked into this, and she was like, I was able to look up this lady. She used her real name, and I looked her up and did my research, and it was just this didn't line up in the least bit. They didn't even give her a backstory to go in. Project Veritas just paid her to do this.
No, like Shane was saying, this is Jacob Wall and Jack Berkman level rat fuckery.
Low effort.
Totally low effort.
Low impact buffoonery.
I mean, that's that's why. I mean, look, I don't know if this is always the most effective thing, but at least in this case with these guys, my sort of tactic towards it is to just openly mock it and make fun of it and try to discredit it in that way. Because I had this whole host of people responding to my thing being like, no, it's not true. And again, to me, that kind of speaks to the lack of utility of this idea of liberal fact checking, because it's so blatantly a lie. It's so obvious. It's what's the point of pointing out? I mean, it's not to say that it's necessarily bad or that you shouldn't ever chronicle the lies of an organization or put together. And there were a number of good pieces, and a few people, whatever their intentions, had linked them in the replies to that thing, here's a chronicle of Project Veritas and how it's a lie or whatever. But it's this weird sense of especially online, that all I have to do is respond to a post and be like, no, that's not true, that's a lie, and that's somehow that in and of itself is some kind of grandstanding political act to do, when in reality it's I don't know. And then there were other people, and Chris, we were joking about this because we've encountered this a lot. There are other people who are I get it's a joke, but actually you're just helping to spread misinformation.
Those are my favorites.
By sharing this. And it's the whole point here, right? And I'm not even saying that what I did is some grand political gesture or whatever. I
will argue that it was.
I'm just making fun of them because they're stupid. I don't take them, because see, that's the thing. To circle back to what we were talking about at the beginning in terms of the liberal notion of creating these false equivalencies between positions. And my approach is, no, if somebody brings a laughable position to the table, I'm going to mock them for it. Yes. I'm going to say, you're an idiot, this is stupid, this is beneath. I'm not going to argue against, because one of the claims was they're Antifa is training people to gouge out people's eyes. Or just ridiculous fucking shit. It's I'm not going to entertain the validity of your point by arguing against it. I'm simply going to say, this is stupid, and I don't take it seriously. Because then, for some reason, I guess, actual MAGA people, and this was kind of my original intent, actual MAGA people, without listening to my parody video, just retweeted it. So I got a lot of, MAGA people in the replies.
That's the good stuff right there.
And one of the things that I kept seeing circulated, and I remember this story because a family member told this to me a few years ago, when I was they were like, oh, Shane, what are you up to these days? And I was like, oh, I study propaganda, academically. And they're like, oh, did you hear about radical Islamic Antifa is putting razor blades in dog treats?
Wow.
And then throwing them into patriots' yards.
Sure, why not?
so that their dogs eat the treats that have like razor blades and thumbtacks in them. And I, when they said that to me, I was just like, that's obviously not true. And they said, no, it is true. I saw it on the news. And I said, like, you're an idiot. You're stupid for believing that. I'm not going to argue. And they're like, do you have, facts to back that up? And I was like, yeah, that you're stupid for believing it. That's the factual evidence I'm bringing to that side of it. But anyway, I saw people regurgitating that particular lie in there. And again, if you see something like that, and, like, if you are a journalist of a kind, I guess it makes sense to maybe be engaged in that, like, habit of fact-checking and working on it. But if you're just, like, a regular sort of citizen, or if you're just a person, like, getting into political arguments online, like, why entertain that? Why be like, you know what, why don't we hear you out, you explain your side, and I'll explain my side? I mean, this is like fucking creationism versus evolutions in school all over again. It's the same kind of framework where it's like, I'm sorry, one side is valid and the other it simply is not. There is no place for it. There, whatever. If you want to believe it, that's fine, but it's not true. Like, yes. And that's the problem too, is the idea that you could fucking, like, the people who believe that are not going to be convinced otherwise. That's the other point. Like the fucking racist cop that Obama brings to the fucking White House is not going to be like convinced to be not racist in a 30-minute photo op. Right? Like, what is the idea here? You're going to provide facts and figures to show actually, like, people of other races truly are human beings. Like, what? Like, why should you have to argue that point? It's absurd.
And I was thinking about it. That cop is probably beating somebody's head in Brighton right now.
Yes, like, 100%.
Or he's like a staff sergeant, and he's directing other people to beat their heads, and he's like, "Oh, dude, no, he freaking went down to the White House or whatever. Like, I thought it was freaking dumb or whatever, but like, he's actually done some cool shit."
Yeah, that anecdote you shared, Shane, as well, about the Antifa putting, Antifa Muslims putting the razor blades in the apples. Like, for somebody to say that they saw that on the news, like, this is like when you're talking to somebody like that, like Facebook has had the ability to the most just moronic, jello-brained boomers to like any post they see that has the trappings of a news article is all put on equal footing, whether it's from NBC.com or Patriot Eagle News.
PatriotReichMarshal.com.
yeah. And so you're just, you're never gonna argue with somebody like that. Speaking of Facebook, though, however, I don't know if you've done this yet, and I would recommend you do, and I kind of want to do it myself. I would search Facebook for your Twitter handle to see if your post made the jump to Boomer Facebook, because there might be a whole other slew of hilarious posts going on about your video right now over there, because like that's like when the Starbucks thing happened, when I did that Starbucks post back in December, like that's when once it made the jump to Boomer Facebook, like that's when it really took off.
It would be great if Steve King's last thing he does while still in office is post like, "Can you believe this?" Wow.
Well, it's funny because when the Steve King thing happened, because like it's like that, it's like such a coincidence, because like I kept every now and then I was checking out Facebook to see, because it kept getting posted in all these different like conservative Facebook groups, and I just happened to search Facebook for my @ and it was like I saw Steve King's post, and he literally, like, I found it myself, and he posted it like 5 minutes earlier, and it had like so many hundred reactions already, and I was like, when I saw that, and I like double checked to confirm that was the real Steve King, I was like, yeah, I'm about to get suspended. Like, that's like, this is all fun and games, but this is over now.
If I'm not mistaken, the biggest news to come out of from about Steve King recently is about him, losing his primary, and that's great. I'm sure whoever primaried him, is some fucking psycho as well, but whatever. The penultimate, the second to last news story that come out about Steve King, I'm pretty sure was about that tweet. So the second to last thing that hopefully Steve King makes, news for was your tweet, and I think that's lovely.
It's so funny. I keep thinking about Shane. I keep thinking about, by the way, to the listener, Shane and Dwight and a couple of our other friends commissioned some delightful cameo videos for my birthday last week. But one of the ones that got is from Roger Stone, and it's so funny because like we received that, like, is he in jail yet? It was like a day or two before he was supposed to report to jail, and I'm just, Shane, it was so funny when you were like, this may very well be his last media appearance before he goes to prison.
Yeah.
Roger Stone's last stand was sending you a message.
He looked terrible. He looked so bad. Can we maybe for the episode artwork, maybe we can include that last frame of the video where he's like trying to force a smile.
His fucking horse teeth about to fall out of his tiny head.
He looks so broken.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of pictures, I sent you guys into the podcast group DM. I sent the picture. It was the Mayor Rizzo statue. It's pretty cool. It was from it was vandalized. It was after the Trayvon Martin verdict. So I was in Philadelphia when that happened.
I did see I guess I didn't even think to look at it. I guess my video did make it into a couple of news articles.
What?
I can't find it in Facebook anywhere.
I'll look around a little bit.
I don't have Facebook, so you can look for that for me.
Yeah, I did a look.
I'll look around a little bit. Maybe take the liberty to drop it in a few Patriots Against Antifa
please
Facebook groups. Maybe throw a little oil in the fire.
Let them know what's going on. Keep them honest, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing on Facebook for Rhinoceros. I'm a bit...
No, there is. I actually searched for your handle
really?
a few weeks ago. Yeah, just for the hell of it.
Oh, I didn't see
if any of your posts had made it on there. Yeah, you're on there.
Really?
Let me look for Shane.
I'm being censored.
I'm gonna do this in real time.
Yeah, please.
Let's see.
I'm looking. I looked up Eat the Rich Pod, and there's a few things about the Jeff Bezos tweet that we had that went viral.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I found somebody posted a screenshot of James O'Keefe quote tweeting a reply to you from Twitter. But it's funny, like the caption on this Facebook post is good. It says, James O'Keefe is leading the pack of new age journalism. Project Veritas reports the truth. They have won every single defamation lawsuit they have encountered. Get on board with them if you aren't yet.
It's just funny because he very much does not represent a new part of, media or journalism or something like that. The shit that they do sucks. Sucks.
I mean, it's pure. To be clear to the listener, if you're not familiar with them, it's pure baseless accusations.
Yeah.
Shane, somebody posted. Because I've searched for your Twitter and I've searched Facebook for photos, and so you can see screenshots of your posts that people have posted. Someone posted this one. I don't even remember this one. KFC has apparently bought the rights to RoboCop, thus proving the thesis of RoboCop, which is that corporate control will ruin fucking everything. And you've got Colonel Sanders and the
nice
and the RoboCop.
That's funny.
That's an old one.
I know there had been a lot of talk about like some of the great anthropologists of our time, and I would just like to say that, Chris, you are by far my most cherished anthropologist in the work that you do on Facebook and Nextdoor. It's great.
If you search for my ad on here, there's several posts. Somebody, you remember when James Woods quote tweeted me? A couple months ago, and like it's really funny because there's several posts on Facebook of like people like on his side, like screenshotting his quote tweet and like how much he was owning me.
Fucking hilarious. What was Muller Dad 69? I just got to look this up.
Allegedly, that was Chris.
Allegedly, there's
no way to know for
Allegedly,
sure.
yeah.
No way to know for sure.
Oh, this is interesting. This is a page called Democratic Socialism Now, and you're not you, but Muller Dad 69 is quote tweeted, and it was a tweet. I guess you said everyone always gets mad at the videos of food covered in gold, but if I say,
they made like a meme out of it.
Yeah, but I say if you want to put 89 cents worth of gold leaf on a cupcake or something, then scam rich people into paying $200 for it. More power to you.
Yeah, they made a meme out of it. I saw that. It's so weird.
The Pickle Rick with Meghan
That's
McCain.
My proudest achievement. That's my proudest achievement, man.
Oh God!
I can't wait till the anniversary of his death so I can repost it again. It's August 25th, I think.
I know, Twitter has become kind of an older platform now and stuff. And, TikTok, I can't say enough good things about it. I absolutely love it.
Ugh.
Oh, it's so good. Oh, you guys are coming around. I'm a pioneer on this. But Twitter online is fun and good.
It could be fun. Yeah, I had a good time yesterday. I had a good time in the replies to that. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I need another day like that. I need another big one like that, Shane.
Yeah.
It's about time.
We need to get back to these traditional values online. Get back to the things that we really enjoy.
What I should really do is just blow up my Facebook account again.
support it entirely. I support it entirely.
That's the most fun. That you can't have as much fun on Twitter even as you can on Facebook.
I think for me the best Chris online moment was when you got banned for the fucking Mueller dad Christmas Happy Holidays tweet, which by the way I'm obviously referencing in the video.
Yes.
And then like I remember texting with you being like, oh, what's going on? Are you gonna like get another Twitter account? And you're like, I don't know, I'm gonna go on like Nextdoor for a while. And then within like 24 hours he got fucking banned from Nextdoor.
It was like 6 hours.
Just immediately.
So
that was really
so
fun. I was actually thinking about making another profile on there and doing that again because I was surprised by just how active Nextdoor is. You know, like I'd do a post on there and then within an hour or two I might have 30-something replies. I didn't think it was going to be, I thought it was going to be maybe it depends on your area, it depends on your neighborhood. But I guess here there's a high concentration of, right-wing, suburban psychos.
It's so true, man. It's so true. Long Island specifically is really just
it's perfect. It's perfect for Nextdoor. And actually I had a post about it on Twitter where I screenshotted the warning page or whatever on Nextdoor. On Nextdoor, if you want to do a post about a suspicious person, like you have to read and then agree to this message that reminds you to not be racist. Right, and then you click through that you understand the rule, and then it literally it takes you to a second page that says this. It's are you sure? Just to make sure, don't say anything about their skin color or
Oh God!
You have to click through two separate pages to remind you to not be racist because they have such a problem with people being racist on Nextdoor.
Again, the sort of kind of liberal moderation of trying to make it a safer place to be racist. What do they think? I also reject, especially I'm just thinking about suburban Long Island and shit. Reject the idea that I hate that northern liberals will say, which is Southern people are racist or whatnot. It's fucking look around. Open your ears for 2 seconds.
I don't remember if I brought this up on the show, but I've definitely told you guys. For a while, last summer I was spending my time in upstate New York, and I would be jogging and stuff down the roads there, and a very rural farming area, and there were a couple of houses I saw that had the Confederate flag, and it's New York State was in the Union, so this is not a heritage not hate kind of argument you can make. Exactly. That's literally just a hate flag. There's no way you can twist and contort it to be no, we just want to honor our fallen brothers or whatever. You know what I mean? It's literally that's just a racist marker on your property saying I am racist and I'm proud of being racist, which is just it's absurd.
And it is no matter what, but they don't have the excuse.
Right, exactly.
I would love to apply that to people that have Blue Lives Matter flags on their cars.
Oh, of course.
I remember thinking about this 6 months ago or so, being how did this swastika end up around in Germany in the 1930s and stuff? I don't know the history of it. Shane, you might know better than I. I'll fucking Google it later. But the point is if we have to look for which people try to do all the time to say that what the neo-fascist movement in the United States is not neo-fascism or whatever, and because it doesn't follow the same aesthetic markers that the Nazis had or whatever. But I'm but aren't there Blue Lives Matter stickers and flags and shit everywhere? And isn't that an aesthetic marker of burgeoning neo-fascism? And isn't that exactly telegraphing to the people that see it that it's represented with you to say Black lives don't matter, and I support a standing army in the United States that's here to enact social brutality? Am I missing something here?
No, that's 100% right. I think there's an article I like quite a bit that I often recommend when people reach out to ask for what's a good text to read about fascism. Fascism by Umberto Eco, in the New York Review of Books. It's quite short too. You can read it in in a single sitting. It's probably about 20 pages or less.
It's not even. It's 9.
Yeah, it's a very concise kind of definition. And one of the points that he brings up there, he grew up in fascist Italy as a young kid, and one of the main points he brings up and he talks a lot about there is sort of the cult cult of heroism and the idea of like heroes being a sort of normalized permanent fixture in the culture of society. And if you read that piece and then you look at like the way that obviously any member of the armed services in this country is automatically considered a hero, but especially like with cops, I mean, it's startlingly similar, especially with the notion that like, you know, I mean, the whole idea of like the thin blue line that, you know, holds back the chaos of, you know, society that would come about if these cops weren't there, and then their own self-importance and like victimhood of like, oh, this is an incredibly dangerous job, and, you know, we have to be armed to the teeth, like we were talking about in our recent episode, you know, that we need like fucking anti-tank weapons and fucking, you know, in case Antifa tries to, you know, hijack a T-34 or an M1 Abrams and roll it against us. We need like all of this fucking military grade weaponry. I mean, and it's absurd, but that is, I mean, right, you're 100% right. I mean, it is the idea that like, that these law enforcement officers are somehow like these soldiers, you know, on like these domestic soldiers, is an incredibly fascist idea. And again, you're seeing it now with like what we were talking about, you know, with fucking Jade Helm 15. Where are all the right-wing anti-government militias? Yeah. Right? They're on the side of the fucking cops right now because that's what they want. When they say they're anti-government, right? What that really means and what that really translates to is what they want is like an enforced police state.
Right.
That's what they actually want. And so
with them being the beneficiaries of that police state.
Right, exactly. They want to be on the, I mean, I saw a video, I forget where because there's been so much shit I've been scrolling through my timeline, but of the police literally taking aside Proud Boys that they have as part of their, you know, that they had helping them do whatever, you know, in terms of the protest, and they take them aside and they're like, you know, we don't want to be seen as having favorites, but we want you guys to hide as we now like aggressively sweep the streets, and giving them instructions on how to avoid getting gassed and stuff. And it's like, what more of a blatant fucking thing than that, you know? It proves that like it is all a cahoots, you know what I mean?
Or that NYPD officer that was openly giving the white nationalist hand fucking signal in like Times Square or something last week, I guess.
You know, in the like 80s, right, with the rise of like the skinhead movement, for a long time the skinheads were, you know, a pretty aggressive sort of street gang, you know, an interconnected network of street gangs, and they did what most street gangs do in terms of running extortion, running drugs, weapons, you know, any kind of illegal activities, you know, dividing turf and stuff. And, you know, they used to get into battles with, you know, again, you know, Antifa punks and stuff, but also just like other street gangs, and particularly other ethnic street gangs or whatever. And there was a moment, especially when the FBI and stuff was cracking down on them a whole lot in the late 80s, where there was a number of them, and this might actually, I might do like a solo episode or something on this at some point.
Yes, please.
But a number of these different groups, you know, their leaders and stuff were thrown in jail, you know, their networks were smashed or whatever. People started leaving the organizations, or they would get arrested again usually for like committing murders and hate crimes and stuff. There was a concerted effort to shift the tactics of the American Nazi movement, and from a number of places the word that went out was, okay, stop being a fucking skinhead, stop shaving your head, stop getting like swastika tattoos on your face or your body or whatever, and start joining the police and the military.
Yes.
And start infiltrating those spaces from within. And, you know, you can speculate, and a number of people have, about like how many there really are, but there certainly are, like, not just, you know, like meat-headed cops who are, you know, dumb and racist and brutal. There are like explicit Nazis and explicit white supremacists within those organizations, and deliberately so, and have been there for decades with the specific intention of using that position to enforce you know, racial, ethnic cleansing via the murder of black and brown people, but also to infiltrate and, you know, infect that space and like get people onto their side and stuff. So it's not coincidental that now those the same kind of mirror versions of those groups, those new street gangs and stuff, are on the side of the cops.
Fucking terrifying. I don't think we can overstate this enough. All cops are bastards.
And there is no one they fear more than Jimothy Sparrowcake.
Real quick, break. I know I gotta get going, and we're running long on time here. But circling back around, you reminded me of a story. Like when I lived in Richmond, I drove cabs, which, by the way, is a job that's far more dangerous than being a police officer.
So much more dangerous.
But I drove cabs, and like when I pick people up at the airport, like we got this group. They're all over the South, but specifically quite active in Richmond, called the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and like their whole thing is going all over town to different places and just waving the Confederate flag around. And they would do this like at the exit and like at the entrance and exit of the airport. And so like I'd pick people up, right? And I'd pick people up who were like from out of town, like they're on business for the day or something. They've never been to Richmond before, and I'd have to like drive past these people, and I'd be like, hey, you know what? Look, we're not all like this. This doesn't represent this. Like, I'm really sorry about these guys. This doesn't represent all of us. But also they would so at the downtown art museum, the Virginia Museum of Fine Art, there's this fucking ongoing ridiculous beef that they've got with the art museum, where they're outside of it almost daily protesting it because there is this very old chapel. It's on the grounds of the art museum that was like used as like an ad hoc medical tent or whatever during the Civil War. And so like for decades and decades they flew a Confederate flag over top of it, and like probably 10-15 years ago they took it down. Like the museum made the decision to take the flag down, and like they've been like protesting outside of there almost daily ever since then. But then like that's on one corner, and then right across the street on the other corner there's a Planned Parenthood, and like quite often you have protesters outside there as well. And like I imagine there's probably a lot of overlap between like each of those groups of protesters. Like I used to have like in my mind, like imagine like in the morning they all like check in at a central office. They like punch their ticket. It's like, all right, where are you going today, Frank? Like, oh, they got me outside the museum today. They had to go in and get their assignment.
God, I think can we just close with one more thing? I wanted to bring up. I didn't want to bring up, and I still don't know if I want to say this, but did you guys see what Joe Biden said? He said 10 to 15% of Americans are bad people.
I saw that trending. I don't know the greater context of that. Taken on its face, I'm not certain I disagree with that.
So I'm with you, but I'm just thinking about like how much political fodder that gave Republicans when Hillary Clinton did the basket of deplorables thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like if we're talking about, and again, I don't disagree with you, but if we're talking about like just pure political calculations and an army of consultants, that should be there to learn from the mistakes of the previous Democratic candidate up against Trump, to then go say the same thing. They just revised the number down a bit, because I think it was Hillary Clinton said like 40% of Americans we could be put into a basket of deplorables. I just thought it was really, really funny.
Yeah, Biden, I mean, it's at this point, like we keep saying, Biden's advisor's only job is just to keep him out of the public eye as much as possible and to keep him from fucking up as much as possible, and they can't even manage to do it for more than a day or so.
It's really quite something to behold. He's much safer napping.
Yeah.
It's also just funny, like, seeing, like, the New York Times and the Washington Post, like, having to come to his defense and then say, like, in the article, when they're explaining it, having to be like, well, Mr. Trump has said this and blah, 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 and the amount of supporters, blah, blah, blah. So they have to, like, go out of their way to explain it.
It's just as ridiculous as Ben Garrison drawing Trump with big muscles. You know what I'm saying? It's like the same mental gymnastics and the same, like, bullshit hoops that the right has had to jump through to defend Trump's melting brain for the past 5 years. Like, to see, like, the liberal media establishment now have to do the exact same thing with Joe Biden without a bit of self-awareness that that's what they're doing.
I can't imagine what sort of therapy Trump's valet would need to go through after seeing his body. I just can't imagine seeing Trump in his actual naked form. It must be.
Wait, why are you talking about that? Why are you thinking about that?
You
Yeah,
said,
stop
you said
thinking
how
about
Trump
that.
is not muscular in the way that he's portrayed, and if we were to actually see what it was like, it's pretty fucking terrible.
You know what's really funny to think about? Think about Trump's hair, like right out of the shower. Think about what his hair looks like wet.
Gollum. Just fucking horrific.
I bet he doesn't take showers. I bet he's a bubble bath guy.
I could see him wearing
He's a bath guy.
I could see him wearing a hair cap in the shower.
No, he's a bath guy. I've determined it.
I think you're probably right.
He likes a nice luxurious bubble bath.
I'm thinking probably we're gonna do the bubblegum bubble bath today. I'm thinking it's a bit nice, a bit light. I'm gonna take it in the morning. Gonna watch Brian Kilmeade.
Did you see that thing Carrie had posted about like in some like Facebook group for like witches? They're like this like woman was taking like a bath where she like put like some kind of potion or something in. And the idea is like you put in like a potion while you take the bath, and it like does a hex. It does like a hex on racism. I just imagine Trump doing that. Like, all right, we're gonna end the racism in this country. All we need to do is put a hex in with my bubble bath. Get the mineral salts.
We're gonna put a hex on Graydon Carter.
Gonna put some nightshade in, folks.
Bubble, toil and trouble. Am I right?
Oh God. We should stop it there. That's enough.
Yeah. Okay.
That's enough. That's all.
Stay cool,
I'm out
folks.
of gas. Stay cool, folks.
I'm being hunted by Bill.